So what we are going to do is we are going to start talking today about a lot of the questions that we get when people come back from the show. Because when you first go to a trade show, there's some things that are really easy and obvious. And then once you get all of those price lists, then you start to say, oh, I didn't realize I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this next piece. So what we're going to talk about today is specifically the questions that we get from people post trade show. So you can put your questions in now, and we'll go ahead and we'll make sure that we cover those things, and then we're also going to go through a couple slides that I think will answer a lot of those things, because we've had people ask questions, everything from how do we decide what are we going to do for consulting, or what are we going to do straight wholesale, to how do I run these lists, to I didn't get enough lists, I've got too many lists. So we're going to be covering all of those today. We're also going to be updating some of the techniques that we had when we first did this webinar several years ago. So let's go ahead and we're going to get started on that. I'm going to go ahead and open a PowerPoint too, just so you guys have something to see besides my face. Sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to follow, I think. So once you come back from the trade show, you have a lot of information. You've had some great contacts, but then on top of that, you might be feeling a little bit about what are you doing? So I want to make sure you guys are all welcome here. Welcome Mark and Lori and Laura Lee, everybody who's here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So tonight we're going to be talking specifically about some of the list, how to process some of the lists, and how to use unprofitable lists as a lead source. So if they said no, or if the lists that you got weren't quite right, then the trade show is not a bust. We can still do a lot with the information that we got. So tonight we're going to be talking about both those things. How do you continue to feed the funnel even if you're not able to go to another trade show? And then how do you make sure that you squeezed as many leads as you possibly can out of the leads that you did have at the trade show? So here's some of the things that I've heard at ASDs as people are leaving, or when they get home, when I talk to clients, they say, well, okay, now I have all these price lists and I'm completely overwhelmed. I didn't find what I thought I was looking for, and now I'm really worried. What if I wasted $1,000 going to a trade show and I didn't come away with any buys? And then I have questions on should I bring this new item to market? I found this item, it was on Amazon, I don't know if I should bring it to market. And then now this year we're also getting a lot of questions about when do you do a straight wholesale deal, and when do you maybe offer to do some consulting on the side. So we're going to talk about all of those different things. So we're also going to talk about how can you focus on using the lists that you have now to help generate more lists. We're going to talk about some things about analyzing lists and some time-saving tips, because every list that you get doesn't mean necessarily that you want to run that list. Not all lists are worth running because there's just no potential for profit. So we want to make sure we're using the lists as a starting point, and we're going to kind of continue on from there. Now, this is our particular process. Now, if you're just getting started, I would suggest you pick a process, whether it's mine or Eddie's or Dan and Eric's. You pick a process and you follow that one process. The reason I would suggest that is because you want to imitate before you innovate. If you try to combine them all together, it's going to get muddled really fast. So what I'd really highly recommend is that you focus in on, doing one way, and then after you have some success, after you already have some wholesale, then you can adjust it as much as you need. One of the questions that I got like 2 or 3 separate emails was, and they were posed from different points of view. Somebody said, well, how much do I have to buy? I found something that was good, but I'm afraid they're going to ask me for like a 2,000 piece order. And so when you buy wholesale, you can buy many times as little as 6, as little as a dozen. So you're going to ask them, what do you like to see on a minimum opening order? And then what do you like to see on reorders? That's a question that ideally we would have asked before we got the price list and written that down. But if you don't have that, you can just call in and say, hey, I'm putting together an order together. I'd like to do a test order first, see how things actually sell for me. And then after that, I would, like to place a bigger order, but I want to make sure I have the velocities right on these. So what do you like to see for a minimum opening order? And then they'll say, oh, well, we like to see you order by there's no minimum. You just order by the case pack. Or, there's a $250 minimum order, but you have to order by the cases. Now, there's some companies, like if you go to Lego, they're going to want a $10,000 minimum order. at the absolute minimum. So the bigger the company, usually the bigger the order. So that's something to think about if you're trying to decide which method, which method you want to use. Smaller companies generally have smaller orders. Food companies also generally have smaller orders. Now, there's always the question about volume discounts. Should I be buying a whole bunch more in order to get a per unit discount? In general, I would say that I would always first rather you pay more and not get the volume discount. See how it actually sells through rather than risk getting stuck with a lot of inventory. Now, this was a big deal 2 or 3 years ago, but now that the storage fees have changed, it's just more and more of a big deal. You don't want to get stuck with a lot of inventory, and especially if it's something like grocery where it could go bad. I would recommend that you place the smallest order possible first, see how it actually sells through. So when I have the choice between going by the data that Viral Launch has or Jungle Scout has, or how my inventory has actually sold through my particular my account, I always pick that. So if Jungle Scout says, oh, it should move 400 and there should be divided by 4, so it should move 100. If I can see that in the last 60 to 90 days I've moved 67 or I've moved 670, I'm going to trust the data from my actual account much more than I'm going to trust any estimates, because those estimates can be wrong. And so we want to make sure that you're placing a small order so you can test and see how it's going to work through your account. And then always, we're going to assume that the cost of shipping is going to be in that price. So, Laura Lee says that she made a couple of contacts with smaller, more beginning companies who don't know Amazon and they're interested in help. So I'm looking how to best help newer companies and products. Options for different kinds of relationships like consulting. So I'm not quite sure how to approach this. What services to provide and priority. So if you have a list, if I can see a list and I can see the items are highly profitable, then I'm going to come in there and place a wholesale order. But before I go in with the wholesale order, I'm going to go to that listing and I'm going to see, could the title be improved? Do the images need to be fixed? Could PPC be run? People just need to see this more? What are the keywords that it's really ranking for well, and are those the keywords that we expect it to rank for? So we would see, is there some opportunity for improvement? Then I would go to place my order. And then this way, when I go to place my order, if they say no Amazon sellers, my immediate response could be like, totally understand that. I can see, you've already had some problems, with map problems. I was wondering if you needed any help with that. And then I would try to go to the consultation after that. Now, we lead with the consultation, but that's because we have a lot of experience. The first couple times you do it, I would go with a straight wholesale first, where you're offering some sort of service, so listing enhancement, sponsored products, those kinds of things as an add-on to why they should let you sell versus everybody else. Then once you've done that a couple times, once you've said, okay, if you let me sell on these items, then I will fix the listings, or in exchange for fixing these listings, could you give me free freight? And we're going to work back and forth. That is definitely something I would do. So really, I would look at, what is it that their problem is, and that's always where we lean into. So if their problem is map pricing, then I would really focus in on map violation tracking, setting up some keep alerts for them, helping them track down some of the violators that they already do have. Now, there's going to be more training coming into the academy on those different pieces, but let me know if that doesn't answer your question, Laura Lee. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that as we get into it. So Jim says, using Price Checker 2, the estimate sales is way off. There's an update, but it's still really inaccurate. We have never, ever recommended, I'm sure somebody will go find the video somewhere, but we have never recommended that people make buying decisions based off of these estimates. The algorithms change very fast, and sometimes programmers with very well-intentioned things, they make one little change and it screws up everything. So, if I look at a sales estimate, when I'm looking at it, I'm usually looking to say, hey, brand A, did you see that brand B is probably doing about $30,000 a month on this one SKU while you're doing 15? That's really the only time that I use those sales estimates. I don't use them for how many I'm going to buy. In fact, I don't even look at them to see if that's how many I think that we're going to sell, because I have found that especially in a lot of the categories and the sales ranks that we're shopping in, they're very seldom right. So what we do is we place a small order, and then we see how it actually sells through, and then we base our reorders off of that. So we don't look at the estimated sales volume as an indication of what we think the sales estimates will be. The only time we use that is to say, to do competitive analysis, where we're saying, this software is saying that you're doing this and this other company is doing Y. It looks like company Y has twice as much market share as you do, and they're the knockoff person, and we just wanted to bring that up. And that's really the only time. In fact, I don't think we'll see if I show you. So when I pull up my Jungle Scout later, you're going to see that I don't think I even have the sales revenue up on it anymore, because we use it so little. So I would never trust the sales data on any of them. You're going to be much better off seeing how it actually sells, because there's a lot of variables besides just who's competing in the buy box. If you have a couple of people who, if maybe your metrics aren't as good as the other sellers, there's a lot of variables. So I don't ever recommend that you use that. Let me know, Jim, if that doesn't answer kind of your question there. So, okay, good. All right. So now you have those price lists. So now what? So first we want to disqualify, and we want to sort the lists. Once we do that, then we're going to go into analyzing the lists, and from there we're going to prioritize which ones get our money first, which ones get our money second, and then you're going to actually place your buys. Again, do as much research as you can on the company about some value adds that if you feel like you're an advanced seller and you can offer a value add, you know how to fix a listing, you know how to run sponsored products, have those things ready before you buy, but don't do those early on. We're only doing those after we've determined that there is profit. So if you don't have enough lists, where you're saying, well, I don't even have enough lists to really sort, then first start going with small. We want to start with small manufacturers. Bigger companies are going to be more hesitant, and they're going to have straighter, more policies against Amazon sellers. Liquidators and distributors are also not going to give you very likely to give you lists. So if you were in that South Hall on the upper level, most of the ASD, they might not have given. You might have gotten no lists, because those liquidators and distributors, they don't really want their price lists out, because it's information that a competitor could use. Now, if you're trying to get enlisted via email, I'm going to say it again, make sure you're using a branded email. So, crazygirl67@gmail.com is not going to get you taken seriously by a brand. It needs to be, jim@jimstore.com, and make sure that every email that you're sending out is customized. It freaks them out if you take the email that's in the academy or in another course and you copy and paste it, and they get 10 emails from 10 completely different companies. It freaks them out. So make sure you're reordering things. Make sure you're putting things in your own words, adding some customization about different things about their company. These will help you get more responses. Now, if you do already have a lot of price lists, we're going to go through again, and we're going to go through this process. Now, so I think the slide got put out of order. So we're going to use the disqualification process first. So if you have a company that you're really interested in, but you didn't get a list from them, then here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to use the disqualification process first to see if it's worth pursuing. So we don't have 45-minute conversations with brands about should they sell to us, and can they sell on Amazon, and trying to justify why we should and shouldn't be able to sell on Amazon, until we have an idea of at least a couple of items and what their prices are going to be. Because if their wholesale prices aren't to the point where we can make a straight purchase, then we're going to have a completely different conversation. So you can use sales sheets or notes. So maybe if they say, well, we don't give price lists out until you're ready to place an order, something crazy like that, and you can say, great, I was just looking at this one particular item. Can you give me an idea of what this runs wholesale? And use that one item to kind of see if it's worth pursuing, try to get more information. So let's say you have your stack of price lists. You have, a whole bunch, and you're really overwhelmed. We're going to put them into 4 piles: yes, no, later, and disqualified. So with the qualification process, each one of these lists, we're going to be looking for these couple of things as we put them into these piles. Can I sell it on Amazon is the first one. So if it's something that you can't sell on Amazon because it's hazmat or because it's in, maybe it's a marijuana paraphernalia, something that cannot be sold on Amazon, then we're going to put it in the no pile or the disqualified pile, because no matter right now, we're not going to be able to have that come back to that item. Is Amazon selling all of the item? If the Amazon is selling all of it, the entire line, then we're going to disqualify it. We're going to put it back in that blue circle. Now, you can always pull things out of the blue circle later. Now, something that I would recommend is you save all of these price lists. And about every 90 days, you go through them and just kind of leaf through them again, see if something has changed, because sometimes people will sell directly to Amazon. It takes them 3 to 6 months for them to really get disillusioned and to say, we're gonna actually go back to third-party sellers, where you want to pull out of Vendor Central. It takes them a while because some of them have been waiting for those Vendor Central invites for a long time. Next thing we're going to look at is the price at or above MSRP on Amazon. This is the one we get asked the most questions about. So Amazon is all about supply and demand. So with most toys and things like that, if it's priced at 20, then the wholesale price will be 10. So if the supply and demand for the item on Amazon, where it's supposed to be priced at 20 and it's already at 17, if that's a $10 item, there's just not enough room in there for Amazon fees and for you to make a profit. The other thing is that even if the price was lower and there was room, the price is already softened below the MSRP. So that tells us there's already more supply than there is demand for the product. And so adding another seller is only going to make that worse. The other thing we look at is the rank within 5% of my buying criteria? So if you look for things within the top 10% of a category, then as you're kind of eyeballing these lists, and we talk about eyeballing, so we're just going to make general looks, right? Then what we want to do is we want to say within 15%, because that particular item might be outside, but there might be other items that are within your criteria. If you are an advanced seller, I would say that your biggest advantage is being able to turn trash into treasure. So if sales rank is important because it indicates demand. So if something has a bad sales rank, it doesn't always necessarily mean that there's bad demand. There's no demand though. It could mean that the listing is not indexed for its proper words. It could mean that there's bad pictures. It could be that maybe there's not a sizing chart on there. It could be that it hasn't been available for a while, or it's been priced really high above MSRP. And so that's what's been keeping the sales from converting. So if you're an advanced seller and you can see that there's a reason why this item has a bad sales rank, and it's a reason that you think you can fix, then I would recommend making a very small purchase, sometimes even buying 1 retail or 3 retail, and see if by fixing that, then you can take something that's outside of everybody else's buying criteria and make it a good buy. Something like that is going to last a lot longer, because not everybody and their dog is trying to jump on that listing, right? So, when we're looking at qualifying these lists and eyeballing these lists, there's 2 ways that we do it. There's a million ways that you can do it. So I'm sure that you can do this with tactical arbitrage. You can do this with Scan Sheet. You can do this with Scan Power Evaluate. The 2 tools that we've been using lately have been Price Checker 2 and Jungle Scout. And we're doing very much an eyeball test. So this is just a quick, I have the list, I'm looking at something really quickly to see whether it's worth having my VAs run the list. One of the biggest mistakes we see is people will have their VAs run every list that they gather. And especially in the beginning, you're going to be bad at this. So it's going to take time to get better. Especially when people come back with these giant catalogs and they have VAs spend months and months and months going through these distributors' catalogs. When there's nothing, even if they do find something, there's so many other people that have their VAs running through that there's nothing there to find. And if it is, it's all found at the same time, and then there end up being this price tanking. Riches are in the niches, so try to stay along the edges, right? But where the demand is exceeding the supply. You don't have to have something move 90 units a month in order for you to make money on it. In fact, I would prefer you have higher ROI items that move less if you're a solopreneur. The exception to that is if you have really big logistics and you have a lot of capital, then yes, you should be looking at maybe items that have a lower ROI and pumping through and using the logistics and the economies of scale in order to make your money. But if you are a 1 to 10 person show, then I recommend you try to get as much profit per item on that you can. Now, the biggest risk in buying things with high sales ranks is not that there's something inherently wrong with them. It's that if you have items that are not turning, it sucks all of the gas out of your engine of your vehicle, of your business. So the gas in your business vehicle is cash. And so if your cash is tied up in inventory that you can't liquidate, it's going to suffocate your business. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that you're buying, if you're buying things with higher ranks, we're going to be buying in much smaller quantities. Right? So you're going to be buying in much smaller quantities, and then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on making sure that we're restocking in a 30-day period. So where, if you're buying Legos, yes, you might be buying $10,000 worth, and that might move in 30 days. But with some of these smaller companies, we might say, okay, well, we have 5 companies that we're going to be placing, maybe a $750 order with. The ROI is higher, but I'm only buying, maybe 12 of unit A, 6 of unit B, 24 of unit C. So I'm buying a very small amount that will carry me through just about a month. And then we're going to start placing orders every other week and restocking them as they sell through. Right? So if you're in the academy, this replay will be available right away. So, you go ahead and do what you need to do. So with Price Checker 2, you just browse for a brand or seller, and then you're going to go to the products, and we just did Mindware because it's one we use for examples a lot. I'm going to need to pick a new company here soon. And then we hit analyze that. And then we don't upload a price list. We just kind of leave it blank and don't have it match. We just put it in with a no cost. And then we pull that out, right? And so then if I had the price list here, and I saw that this was priced at $12.50, I would say, oh, no go. But if I saw that it was priced at maybe $6.50, then I would say, okay, look, there's potential there. So what we're doing is we're kind of looking back and forth, and I would look at Kiva, Maple, Plank on their price list and say, okay, that is $12.50. All right, and then that one's a giant. So let's say that one's 75. All right, there's some great margin there. Or if I looked at it and I said, hey, looks like there is actually, the price of it is 150. There's not any margin there. So we're kind of looking to see if there's at least 2 or 3 items that it looks like maybe there is some potential. We're just literally eyeballing and looking. So kind of especially on items that it's all lotion and they're all the same size, you're going to see like 650. 650. So if I saw that, I would say if all of their items average 650, I would be like, wow, there's some great things here. Obviously can't make anything on the Kiva balls, but I can make some money on the other things. So this is not me running through the list detailed. This is me saying, okay, now this list is worth me having my VA run. Right? So I'm going to put this in this yes pile. So remember way back here, we had different piles. So that would go into the yes pile. If I look at it and I like run through maybe like 10 just kind of back and forth looking, and I see that they're all negative profit, it looks like everything we're going to lose money, or maybe we might make $1.50 on, then I'm going to put it in the no pile. And if it's a 600-page catalog, then we're going to put it in the later pile. And you can have your VAs do those later. I would much rather have you go through 500 small companies than through 2 big catalogs any day of the week. All right? So that's kind of what we do. Now with Jungle Scout, we kind of do the same thing. We search by the brand, and then we pull down the net, and then we compare that to the price list. So we're going to see, so we would say here, this, on the, let's see, on the QB Maze 2.0 big box, then we would look at that and we would say, okay, well, how much is that? So let's say that was $12.95 and it ends up being net $23.22. That's not the exact matchup. That's not the way that they match up correct. So the qubits was $12.75 and this is 16. So I only make a couple dollars for us. I would have to leave this, that wouldn't be an item that I'd be interested in. But if I saw a couple of items that were really close, where I was like, you know what, if I got a volume discount or if I could get 5% off and free freight, I could make this work, then it's going to go into that yes pile. Right, so I'm going to say, okay, it's worth me having that, putting it in that yes pile to have my VAs run later. So I'm just now separating by looking, and I'm saying these are the ones I'm running right now. Short lists that look like they have profit potential. The no's we're not throwing away. Those are things that met all of the other qualifications, but right now they're not profitable. We're going to put those in a pile and we're going to come back to those in 90 days. And the later ones are things that we're going to have our VAs do when we don't have enough work for them to do. We're going to have them start working through those later items one at a time as we move through things. So the yes piles are going to be when you see a possibility of profit. The ranks are within your windows. It is something that you can sell on Amazon, and Amazon is not selling the entire line. No is when the profit isn't close at this time. Maybe Amazon is selling the entire line, but you want to check back. Especially lately with Vendor Express closing down, you might say, anything where Amazon is selling directly, I'm just going to put this in a pile and I'm going to go back and check these over the next every 90 days to see if they end up not being sold by Amazon anymore. If you see that, something that shows you that the item is just complete trash for some reason, like it's not sellable on Amazon, then you can throw this away. We actually keep a lot of lists, and there have been a lot of lists that we've ordered off of 6 to 12 months later. With the later pile, it's large, overwhelming, very bundle heavy products, because we want to focus on easy wins and getting you some orders right away. Once you have some wins under your belt, then we can go back and we can try to piece together bundles if that's needed, but I would rather have you focus on the clear wins first, right? So check the specific items, and that's why if you grab the catalog because you saw like a tractor salt shaker that you thought would go really well, then check that those 4 or 5 items, or maybe a couple of items on those pages, see if they're good, and then you can put it in the later pile. So I don't want you wondering all the time, was that good? Check the couple things that really caught your eye, and if those aren't good, then move on. If those are good, then you could always start an order with a very small, starting with a small section. So we're going to move them into that yes, no disqualification. Now the ones that you do get into the yes, we're going to match up every ASIN with a price from the price sheet. We're going to look for other variations of how the brand name was spelled. So we never just upload a list of UPCs. I cannot remember the last time we did that unless it was a brand consulting client that was asking for specific information. Our VAs are trained to search by brand name first, and then match it up to the list, and then start searching for the products by name. And then, then they search for any items that they couldn't find by UPC. UPC is last because I want all the bundles. I want all the duplicate listings. I want all the data so I can make a real decision. Especially if you're doing groceries or health and beauty, you're going to miss out on all the really good pieces if you skip the bundles. And if you skip the multi-packs and you skip the things that people put the wrong UPCs in on purpose. So you want to make sure that you're doing more than just checking the UPCs. We very rarely, I know that makes it easier to just upload a list, but you're going to miss a lot of the good stuff. We always recommend that you search by brand name. That's why we search by brand name first to pull down that list. We match it up to those items, and then we'll go back and look up for individual items and add them to the bottom of the list, which means you might have something on this price list that ends up 6 times on your analyzation list. And that's okay as long as you are really clear on, well, this one is a bundle, this one's a multi-pack, this one's a duplicate listing, so we're going to have those merged. It's going to give you a much better data source. So in order to track vendors, we used to recommend a spreadsheet. And if you're just getting started, you have under 20 contacts, stick with the spreadsheet. After you get a little further along, I want you to use Asana. Asana is free. You're going to create a board, and you're going to use that. You can do a board or list. I'd recommend that you do a board, and it's going to allow you to put notes for each brand. Like, I talked to Susie, this is what she said, and we want to imagine a pipeline, and we're moving those leads through the pipeline. So we have constant leads that we're sending in. So we're getting new names of companies, we're getting new trade show lists, we're talking to new vendors, and then from there we disqualify them, and then from there we try to get their price list. From there we see if they're yes, no, later, maybe, And the ones that are yes, we're running the price list, and then we're placing the order. So you have to keep moving these items through there. And it's important for your wholesale business for you to constantly be feeding new leads. We did let our pipeline start to empty out. We weren't being as aggressive because we had we had a lot of wholesale accounts. And I will tell you that, there was a moment where we had to step it up really fast, and it was frustrating to have to start over again. So keep feeding those new leads into your business. So here's an example of a pretend wholesale. These are obviously not real companies. They're real companies, but they're not, this is not our real board, but this gives you an idea of how you would set it up. So you would set up these 4 different areas, and if you're in Momentum, we'll just transfer this board over into your Asana for you so that you can adjust it and build it so you don't have to worry about how do you put it together. And so what we would do is we would put in the name and the phone number and the website of each store as after they're qualified, after they go through that disqualification process. And then we're going to try to contact them, and once we're contacting them, we're making notes. And then once we have the price list, we move them into here. And then once we have the price list and we've analyzed them, then we're going to look at who we're placing orders from. So it gives us a list of who you're placing orders. So we don't really count anybody can open an account. So keeping track of how many accounts that you have is a completely useless measure for wholesale. What we do is we say, for our KPIs, for the things that we measure in our business, we only count a wholesale account if it's something that we can reorder from, that we ordered from, things went well, and we're ready for a reorder. Those are the companies that we're considering as accounts in our company. And the next question is, how many should you have? It's going to depend on the size of the companies. You have one really great company, that might be enough to sustain your business. I think you need to keep finding new ones in case that one went away. There have been some times where we've had as few as 6 or 7 really good accounts, and there have been times where we've had up to 30 or 35 accounts that we're consistently ordering from. And it always is changing. There is no week that stays the same because sometimes companies go out of business, new companies come ahead, and the reason for that is because we reorder based off of a priority. Where we say certain orders get priority first. So existing profitable turns that we're restocking on, those get our money first. So things that have already sold through, already were profitable, sold where we thought they would, those get our money first. And we're going to do that in order of things that have the highest ROI mixed with a solid turn. And then new bundles and new listings come in way after that. So if we have a new product, our replens always get our money first before the new products. And we're going to put them in order of ROI, but it has to be something we can turn within 30 days. So what that does is it slowly allows us to keep emotionally untied from our street wholesale deals, where they slowly kind of get bumped off the list if we have something that's better. Now with our consulting contracts, that's a little different, right? We're more tied to them. But with straight wholesale, we're always looking for how can we increase the ROI, how can we best use the finite resource of our capital together. So if you still have more to spend after you do that, then we're going to focus on niching down, and then every company that tells you no as you place an order, and even maybe the companies that told you yes too. These say actually you want to do both. You want no and the yes. The yes is actually more important. Ask them what trade shows are they going to be attending. If they're companies that you're already ordering from, you want to know what trade shows that they're going to attend, because that will tell you when you should order again, because they're going to have show specials like free freight or 5% off. This is going to give you a lot of, it's going to tell you when you want to make sure you have orders ready. If you have sales reps, you can ask them the same thing. What shows do they know their brands are coming to? What other shows do they attend? That can help you use those as the trade show no-show list. So in the Academy, we have 3 ways to find wholesale vendors. One is to go to a trade show, literally boots on the ground. The other is to use the trade show as an exhibitor list, where we're going to say, let's look and see who's registered to vend there, and we're going to contact each of those. And then the other one that we can do is we can say, I'm just going to start looking on Amazon in a niche. So I know that I play lacrosse, and I know left-handed lacrosse mug hand things are hard to find, or this certain kind of mouth guard is really hard to find. I'm going to start there, and I'm going to look at customers who viewed this, also viewed that. I'm going to start gathering company names, companies. And from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a new list of a whole bunch of new companies. Some of them might be private label, some of them might not be interested in Amazon. But if somebody is a private label company and you call them, the worst thing that's going to happen is they could say no. But what if they're a private label company and they got in way over their heads? They got a great product, but they don't know how to sell it on Amazon. Now you might have an exclusive that you could really help grow. So I think the upswing of talking to small companies is great. In fact, almost all of our companies that we carry straight wholesale have less than 3 wholesale vendors on. We particularly look for items that don't have an FBA offer or have 1 or 2 FBA offers. Yes, you're going to get turned down sometimes, but you're going to get turned down sometimes anyway. But I feel like sometimes that, when you filter out, you could be filtering out for some of the best leads that are out there. So I was going to pull out of this for a second. Okay, so I'm sharing my desktop. I just wanted to make sure here. And let's look at, let me just make sure here. Okay, so with this, so I pulled this up already. So, oh yeah, okay, good. So you can see here, so with Jungle Scout, I did the exact same thing. So I've noticed that since February, they have, you double check the fees because we noticed a couple times they were off. So I would just pull this up and you can see I don't even have the estimated sales on the way that I have it set up on my computer because I don't use it. But what I would look at is, I would look up a couple of random items and see, is it still profitable? So you can do this on Price Checker too. You can do this on Jungle Scout. You can do this on pretty much all of the software. So don't feel like you have to do a particular kind of software to do that. I wanted to make sure that we got to that before we went too far. So we're going to start by niching down. So let's say you're like, well, I've done really well with a certain kind of item. So you're going to go to that particular item. You're going to look at customers who viewed, and you're also going to start looking at some of the different companies that are down here. And then you're going to kind of follow those rabbit trails and you're going to say, all right, so I'm writing down some of these companies. Some of them are going to be too big. Some of them are going to be too small. It's like kind of like Goldilocks and the 3 bears, right? So then you're going to start looking at different products and you're going to get more and more niche. You're going to kind of stay on the niche side. And then you're going to start to look at different, making a list of these different companies like Giant Microbes. And then you're going to go back and you can actually start looking for these keywords and see what other companies compete against this. With that, you're going to make this big old list of company names and you're going to use it just like a trade show list where you're going to go through that same disqualification process. You're going to keep going, right? So turn a no into a lead by asking what trade shows they attend. Register for those really niche trade shows, and then keep asking for price lists. And if you've done a whole bunch of research on company A and company A makes Giant Microbes and they say no Amazon sellers, then what I would usually do is I'll look at all the other companies that are competing against them and seeing if they're interested. And then I'll look at other companies that are right next to it because I've already done research on this category. So it makes it a lot easier. So you can use a no. So let's say you got a list, you were really excited, then they said no Amazon sellers. Don't let that be the end of the trail. Say, what are the other companies that I can take this research for and use it as competitor research? Then I'm going to still, unless I close, I don't like holding companies that are too closely connected as far as competitors, because I feel like it's a conflict of interest. But what I'll do is, if neither of them said no, I'll just keep following up with both of them every 90 days until one of them says yes or they tell me to go away, right? So we're going to prioritize again. We're going to triage in the way that we reorder. Don't just reorder something because you're out of stock. Reorder something because it's still the best use of your money. You want to be jaded and say, the highest ROI, the things that have already turned, that's going to get my capital first. Then I'm going to bring new items to market. And then when you're placing those orders, I would again recommend you place the smallest order possible. I recommend that you extend the show specials. Ask them if they'll extend it for a month or so. Ask for terms, which will give you, 60, 30, 90 days to pay. You can always ask for free shipping at the show. However, if they don't say free shipping, you have to assume that they are going to charge you for shipping. So make sure you have that in your calculations. And then place a lower quantity for your test order. Now, if you're overwhelmed Overwhelmed can be fixed. Overwhelm is something that can be fixed for sure. Oh, I see Laura Lee has a question here. And Cal had a question here too. He said, suggestion for good tools to analyze product lists from wholesalers. So I waited on to answer that because I knew we were going to talk about that. So Jungle Scout, Price Checker 2, Scan Sheet, which is something off of CyberMonkey Deals, Scan Power Evaluate, Tactical Arbitrage are all great. I would recommend, what we use mostly is Price Checker 2 and Jungle Scout. However, I'm going to be looking more into seeing what training we can provide around tactical arbitrage, because I think a lot of people already have that. Does Scope give the same kind of information as Jungle Scout or Price Checker 2? Scope gives very different information. Scope gives you, so it does pull some of the Jungle Scouty kind of stuff. Honestly, it doesn't pull the things that I need fastest, so I don't use it for that. What I use Scope for is to see what keywords a listing is ranking for. So, is it ranking for the keywords that I think it should be ranking for? And then, is there something I can take to the brand that says, you're ranking on, 6th for your own name. That is ridiculous. We need to fix that. Let me come help you fix that. So I mostly use Scope for keyword ranking. And just to make sure an item is actually indexing for the words that we feel that it should be indexing for. Let me know if that doesn't answer your question. All right. So with Overwhelm, right, if you're completely overwhelmed, then, and a lot of times when you come back from these trade shows, it's really easy. I still get overwhelmed a lot of times. I got overwhelmed this time. And sometimes you're going to have to do what I did, and you're going to have to say, you know what? I just need to cut myself some slack, give myself some grace, and move some things out, right? But first, you're going to write everything out that needs to be done. When you feel it's all in your head, it feels much more oppressive. And you're trying to use all this brain energy to keep it in your head. Write everything out. If you've seen me travel, you've seen that I pretty much always have some sort of notebook with me. And that's because I write out all of these ideas, because if you don't write them down, they're gone, right? And so what I'll do is I'll write down all the things I know. If you open my book, you might see a random page that says Wednesday to do, and it has 57 things on it. And just by writing out all 57 things, I can say, okay, well, all right. You're being a little hard on yourself. Not all 50, you could do 20 of these you could pass off. And, 2 of these you could do right now. And then, there's a couple of other these things that, yes, they do need to be done on Wednesday. And there's some things that we could put off till Thursday or Friday. Once you have it all written out, you can start to create some timelines. And then once you find yourself as somebody who can honor your word to yourself, then I know when I say I'm going to spend 2 hours a day on wholesale, I'm going to spend 2 hours a day on wholesale, your world starts to make more sense. Your business will start to move a lot faster, right? So the biggest thing with wholesale is you have to keep the pressure on. You have to keep moving through these numbers and moving through these different items and moving through lists constantly. Otherwise, it's really easy to lose steam and get distracted. And you were going to move into wholesale, and 6 months later, you're still doing RA. Nothing wrong with RA if that's your intention. How if your intention was to move, you're going to have to be really intentional about making sure that you're actually spending 2 hours a day on wholesale. You would be amazed the progress that you can get working 2 hours a day on something. So make sure that if you have that overwhelm, you're breaking things down into doable bites, so it makes it a lot more digestible. So we're heading here towards the question part. So go ahead and start typing your question, so I don't have that weird, awkward, I don't know what question, I'm waiting for a question moment. So if as many questions as you guys want, if it looks like there's going to be a lot of questions, I'm going to have to jet over to turn on the lights because the sunlight from the window is gone. We'll go ahead and give you a chance to ask your questions. Just a reminder, the Academy is closing temporarily for 2 to 4 months. So if you want to join, make sure you join by Tuesday night at midnight. You can use coupon code 14 days for a 14-day trial if you're going to use the monthly. If you're going to do yearly, it ends up being only $27 a month, because with $75 off, it takes it down to $324 a year. It's a really great deal. The price will be going back up when we reopen, regardless about when we reopen. So if you think you are on the fence, I'd recommend that you come in and try it. We're going to be making some things some more user-friendly. And if there's something you can't find, let me know. Because I had somebody today that sent me an email saying, I can't find anything on Wholesale in the Academy. I think you just missed the entire section that, so if you can't find something, reach out to Brianna and I, and we can help you with that. So are there really no questions? I'm hoping that means that I was complete and not, was that helpful at all? So let me know. Give me some feedback. Can you guys still hear me? Because I haven't seen anybody. Okay, good. All right. Go ahead, Kenya. It can be off topic. Is there info on the Academy or momentum on consulting? There will be some things coming into the Academy. We do have some stuff in momentum. So, PM me offline and we can see if we can make something work. Let's see. Thank you, Mark. Do you ever consider buying Amazon selling items if you want to try bundling? So yes. So there was I'm going to turn on the light in here because I feel like it's getting really dark. Hold on. Just a second. All right. So my sister came in from out of town, and so we are having family night. So I snuck up here for a second, not my normal digs. So yes, so there was an item that I found at ASD, and I loved it. We started selling it. It was awesome. Amazon came out on the listing, but it was a water balloon filler. And one thing that I noticed is that when people, because we also carried the water balloons from that company, but what we decided to do when Amazon came on the listing is we started carrying the water balloon filler with water balloons that were not the same brand. So it'd be a little bit harder to duplicate, right? So we started to do that, and we were able to sell a lot of these items. So yes, if it's a bundle, I will try it, but remember, Amazon is doing virtual bundles and stuff. They're not really good at it, which is great for us, but just make sure you're buying small quantities and test. And, when it comes to bringing new items to Amazon, you want to make sure you're not bringing a whole bunch all at the same time, because it takes time to launch a product, and it can divert your attention from where you really need to be focusing on in your business. Let me know, Trish, if that didn't answer your question. But where do you know how keywords link up? I'm going to have to expand on that, Kenya, because I'm not quite sure. So I'm trying to think of what that could mean, but I'm not quite sure. So go ahead and ask a follow-up question. Let me see if I can stop the share for a second. Let me see if I can pull up Scope. I can't remember if I'm logged in or not. Because if Seller Labs is watching, you have to log in like 8 times. So let me just log in to Scope while I'm seeing that, giving Kenya a chance to ask her question. Again, I'll pull up Scope here for kind of what I'm looking for. Okay. Let me just make sure it's really loading, because I've done that a couple times. All right. So with this, if you're on the outside listing here, it does kind of like a Jungle Scout kind of thing. I don't trust it because it's all estimates, right? So there's not the things that I really need aren't here. Where I really need the net, that's the thing that I really want, and I really need to be able to export it. So that's the reason we don't use Scope for this particular part of our business. However, if you go into a listing, that is where we start to use Scope a little bit more. So let me see here. Let's see here. Stop it. All right, it's trying to load. It's having a hard time. But what it loads in is the keyword part. So let me see if there's any other questions here. Do you recommend contacting vendors you couldn't make it to ASD and having, yes, I would recommend, and I would use a great opening, say, hey, I really wanted to meet you at ASD. I was waiting to contact you at ASD because I was really looking forward to meeting you. However, I just, it's so big, I just didn't get over there, but I am interested. I'd like a price list. And do you have a lot of problems with people not letting you buy small quantities? I have never had a problem with that, but I purposely look for small companies. So if you're looking for Lego, they're literally going to laugh at you. Like they might throw back their head and ha 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 laugh at you if you try to pick. So if you try to order from Hasbro or Spin Master, then yes, they are not going to let you order a small amount. However, if you order from a very small company that's used to specialty stores, they're going to have no problem with the small orders. So you just have to ask, and that's why you ask that minimum opening order question. Let's see. Let me know if that didn't answer your question. There was a screen previously that showed several keywords. How do we find those keywords? Oh, so there you would find that through scope. So let's see, like here on Mindware Qubits, then if you pull that up, it'll actually tell you all the keywords that this item is ranking for and what position a lot of them are ranking for. So this is running really great for Orbit's game, right? It's ranked number 7 for Kiva Brain Building game. So you're going to be able to see, so the keyword and the position are really the only pieces of data. This is probably going to upset the people who build the software, but these are the only 2 pieces of data that I actually look at. I don't, the score is completely irrelevant because it tells you it's basically a search volume, and search volume isn't as important to me as relevancy. So, while cognitive games, there's more search volume than maybe a logic game, but if this is more relevant, then I'd rather have it be for that. And you can download these keywords into a CSV. I don't really look at this. We can ask Nate if he does, but I don't think he takes much stock in that. And then we don't look at the estimated sales because they could be wrong. So really, this is what we look for right here. Let's see. So a small company is going to have a booth. They're going to have, a small number of SKUs, right? So if you think about like Hot Wheels, it's a big company. Some companies, you can just kind of tell by their website. If you call and you're talking to the president, it's a small company. If you call and you're talking to the assistant of the assistant of the assistant of the sales manager, that's a big company. So when I look at big companies, I look at how many SKUs they have. I look at how many millions of dollars they're probably doing. So I kind of aim for that anywhere between, a $500,000 to $3 million a year mark for a company. That's a great place for me to pick them up. And then from there, we can help them grow their company. So but I don't know that. I just call and I kind of get an idea. So if I call and they say, yeah, well, our minimum opening order is, $20,000, then I know they're not interested. If I call and I get 16 secretaries before I can talk to a salesperson, then it's probably a pretty big company. And so it's kind of what I look for. Beth, let me know if that doesn't answer your question though, because I'm trying to see, or no, whoever that was, it disappeared it. So let's look at Beth. So if a company stops selling to Amazon, directly to Amazon, and Amazon still has the buy box, is there anything that can be done? So first you have to figure out, so if they sold to Amazon previously, Amazon might have had 40,000 units in stock, especially if it was a good seller. So if they did, and they will tell you how many units that they have in stock, and if they go into Vendor Central, it's the demand forecasting report is the one that you want. Demand forecasting, if they're going into Vendor Central, if they'll do that for you. Or they can just, that's where you can ask them how much Amazon has in stock. If they don't know how Amazon is getting them in stock, you're going to have to track down who is selling it to Amazon. That will get easier as Vendor Express gets closed down though, because that has been where a lot of that has come from. What I would do is I would try to work on some bundles and some new products with them. Maybe see if they'll run it in purple for you, or see if they can do a multi-pack for you in exchange for you helping them kind of get this cleaned up. And then once it's cleaned up, then you can start selling on that SKU. Oh, it was Cindy that asked that. Cindy, let me know if that didn't answer your question. Let me go back to the chat here. Let's see, do you ever find the supplier will not discount for higher volumes? I seem to keep getting that, but I feel that other must be Okay, so here's the thing. Used to be that that was a very commonplace practice. Um, it was overdone. Too many people were asking for volume discounts. And so what, honestly, if I'm talking to a brand, I will tell them don't sell a large volume to a seller you don't have experience with, because once they have that inventory, there's not much you can do. So a lot of them are, they're going to say, well, I don't, I need, and I like, they're going to have like a base margin. um, it's really about relationship more than it is about quantity for me. I get discounts all the time without having to buy deep quantity, but it's because I've built a relationship with them. So if you're hitting that brick wall, one, you might be talking to companies that are a little bit too big, maybe that, they don't need the capitalization as much. It could also be that, they don't have the cash to have that much, and they don't have enough inventory in stock, so they don't really want you to buy up that because it's keeping it from going to other channels. So, I've never really tried to get the big high volumes because it increases your risk significantly. So, the people I would ask about that, I know that there's a lot of people that do get discounts, but honestly, the ones that I know that do it the most, they're doing it on opportunity buys, or basically the clearance from the wholesale. That's where they're getting those big deals from, not from quantity discounts. Now, if you're buying 50,000, yeah, you do get a discount. But I mean, to buy 25 or 50 or 100 is, for most companies, that's not going to be enough to give you a discount. So it might be the quantities, it might be the relationship, or it, could be something in between. So one difficulty I had at ASD was being quick. It took me 4 hours to get 20 vendors because I was focusing on building relationships. Yes. So stop building relationships at that point. So yes, building relationships is crucial, but building relationships after there's some potential for profit. Because if you build this relationship and there's nothing, and then you say you get them to consider you, they're willing to do that, and you get the price list, and then you see that there's no profit, and then you have to you have to move backwards because now there's no profit for you. You've got them all hyped up, and then you're going to just walk away. That's a really bad experience for them. So what I would do is not focus on building the relationship until you've actually had a chance to look at the price list to get an idea of whether or not you want to even work with them. Once you do that, then have that conversation with them. And I will be very, very frank with them. I'll say, hey, I'm just here, kind of getting the lay of the land. I want to see what kind of get my orders kind of pre-placed, see who's here. Is there any way I can get a price list so I can remember to come back to you? And you can move through it really quickly, and then you come back to the companies that there's a potential, and if they won't give you the price list, then you say, great, totally understand, can I just take a sales sheet, and is there any way you can just tell me how much that one and that one is wholesale? And from there you can make sure that there's even it's something that it doesn't have 40,000 sellers on it. Maybe Amazon is carrying the entire line. Maybe the listings need to be completely redone and you don't have time for that. It's going to allow you to have those conversations with the data that you need, because now you're going to come back and you're going to actually know something about their company. Whereas right now, you're doing it on the spot. You're not going to have all the data that you need to really do it, to give them all the information that they really need. All right. I had a lot of vendors tell me that they would email me a price list and they didn't. Yeah, they never do. I don't know what it is. So I usually will ask to take a sales sheet, or I'll ask to take a couple of pictures and I'll take notes on what they were. You always ask first. Or I'll say, can I send you an email to, just to remember who I was? But, if anytime I can, I try to make sure that I leave with a price or two so I know whether it's worth my time to badger them. So Amanda says, welcome to the Academy. She said, you just joined today. You want to learn it all. Where's the best place to start? So I would start in the choose your own adventure section, where it's going to talk about like what kind of business you have. If you're looking to start in wholesale, start working through that wholesale, but don't wait till you get to the end, and you need to start taking action right away on each step. So start moving through those processes, and then we're going to continue to do that. And then what I would recommend is you go through that, you choose your own adventure part in the Academy. It's going to walk you through what courses and what things maybe you need to think about. So it'll say, well, do you have a budget? Should we, do we need to work on your cash flow? Do we need to talk about inventory management before we talk about anything else. If you get stuck, you get lost, feel free to post in the academy. If you can't find what you need, make sure you ask. We want to make sure we get you that. If you're doing this part-time, would it be fine to communicate mostly through email? Yes, but it's going to take you a lot longer. I would expect to contact 200 to 300 companies for every company that you do. I would recommend mornings and lunch, or lunch and afternoon, depending on what your time zone is, that you are that, you know, before or after work, or maybe lunch in your car, you're making a couple calls. No matter what time zone you're in, there's some companies that you're going to be in, unless you're working a 12-hour nurse shift, but even then, there's usually one day a week that you can make a call. So yes, you can do it, but don't expect the same velocity as somebody who's on the phone every day. Let's see. Do you consider buying into a brand that Amazon is selling, but not that particular? Yeah, so there are a lot of companies that Amazon will only carry certain items and they won't carry other items, and we definitely will look at buying those. We are very careful about how deep we buy, so we don't want to get stuck if Amazon decides to do more. Yes, Michelle, this is recorded. In fact, I'm pretty positive you're in the academy. So I've live fed it to the academy. So this way, you know, nobody would have to wait. So it'll be available right away. But we're going to get it up, and we're actually going to move this into the wholesale section because it's got some updated pieces to it. I think, let me see if I missed anything in the chat. And if you're watching this on Facebook, I can't see your questions, so you have to come into the Zoom because I am not that cool. All right. Let's see. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so if you're waiting for somebody else to ask your question, it's not going to happen, so you should ask it right now. If you are interested in joining the academy, I'd love to have you. No pressure, but we are going to be doing a lot of stuff over the next couple weeks, so we want to make sure that we get everybody in that wants to come in, and then we need to kind of restructure things. We're going to be pulling some things apart so it's easier to navigate. It got a little spider webby, like as far as, you know, there's too many different places where information can be. We're going to try to streamline that a little bit. So I guess that is it for the questions. Thank you all for coming, and thank you. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask them in the academy, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.